A new book explores the long gone but not forgotten side of the Hoosier State, and a special book signing in Indy this weekend will be a great way to pick it up. With me is the author of Lost Treasures of Indiana, Joseph Peet. Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you. So you'll be at the Eugene and Marilyn Glick Indiana History Center right along the canal here in Indy on Saturday afternoon, signing copies of this new book. And I want to explore some entries that'll likely be of interest to WTTS listeners in particular here in a moment. But let's just get some origin story here. What made you want to compile this book about all this cool stuff we used to have?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I've been a longtime journalist in Indiana. I studied at IU. I've been a journalist in Southern Indiana, Central Indiana, and Indianapolis. Lived in Indianapolis for years, and then I'm from Northwest Indiana originally. But I've lived in every north, south, central part of the state. I've been writing like local history books for a while now. I mostly focused on the Calumet region area previously, but my publisher, Reedy Press, had asked me to do a statewide book as part of their Lost Treasure series, which looks at like bygone landmarks and beloved places, in different cities and states across the country. And I was very eager to do it because partly I grew up outside of Gary in Northwest Indiana. And that's a great case of like you have all this rich history, like the Jackson 5 is from there. VJ Records was the first one to put out the Beatles in the United States. And they, a lot of those landmarks where the auditorium where the Jackson 5 first performed or the VJ Record studios were, great historic significance, but they were just kind of abandoned and allowed to crumble. And there are a lot of notable like historic places that were just kind of like neglected and left behind. And so I've always kind of had a soft spot for the importance of preserving these places.
I love that we're hitting music right off the bat, and I appreciated looking through this so much. For the sake of being official around here, we on the air, we have to call it Ruoff Music Center lest we anger the suits, but for the sake of this segment, we can call it Deer Creek because that is indeed the lost but nowhere near forgotten name of the big venue in Noblesville, and I love that you included that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the premise is like lost places, but sometimes what's lost was a name. And I've always viewed Deer Creek as like kind of the Sears Tower of Indianapolis, where, in the Chicago, like their names change, like it's the Willis Tower, but everyone still calls it the Sears Tower.
Right.
Everyone still calls it Comiskey Park. It might be Wright Field now. Like people stick to the original name, and Deer Creek is a classic example of that. You still have I still call it Deer Creek t-shirts. But, obviously it's a classic music venue. Some of the biggest names in passing through the Indianapolis area perform there. But, corporate sponsors over the years, they really can't change what, everybody knows it as, and that's Deer Creek.
You even get into the controversial story of the Little Nashville Opry, which infamously burnt down in 2009.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, when I lived out I went to school in Bloomington and I lived out in that area for a while. And I was I went to the venue once or twice, but I was very familiar with it because they did, over the years, they did bring in a number of big acts like Johnny Cash, Reba McEntire, Loretta Lynn. They brought in some, for a very small venue. There was kind of obviously an homage to the Nashville Opry, famous Nashville Opry. It was a very well known kind of, roadside place. But unfortunately, the owners apparently had amassed some gambling debt, and they ended up burning it down in what investigators later determined to be an arson. But it was really like one of the most hallowed halls of country music in Indiana. You had Willie Nelson perform there, Billy Ray Cyrus, just so many big names for such a small venue where they had wooden benches, just rustic place where they sold fudge and home cooked meals.
That's right, they did fudge there. I forgot about that. There's entries on music, movies, restaurants, industry. There's so much Indiana history in the new book, Lost Treasures of Indiana. And author Joseph Peet's been my guest. He'll be at the Eugene and Marilyn Glick Indiana History Center this Saturday from noon to 4 with copies of the book and a Sharpie ready to sign yours. Joseph Peet, thanks for the book. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.